Hi, Ange. Tough one, Brighton, and then a lot of the players going off on international duty. Have you had a chance to strangle, explode at them yet after that?
Yeah, look, I was speaking metaphorically, as you can see, because I'm here. I haven't exploded, and yeah, look, it's one of those where you kind of, as much therapy as anything else, just get things off your chest. But at the same time, it's about giving the right sort of feedback. The emotion of what you're feeling straight after the game is obviously, dissipated 10 days later, but like I said, it's important that the players get the appropriate feedback for what was, a real sort of difficult game for us because we, as well as we did in the first half, we were really poor in the second half.
During the break, there was talks with Van der Lecht and Ryan Mason potentially going there. It didn't happen. Can we get more on that, and how pleased are you that he's still here?
Yeah, look, there wasn't too much in it, but I've always worked on the premise that part of my role is also developing coaches, and something I take great pride in. And Ryan's obviously someone who sees himself one day taking that opportunity, and it's obviously a really important decision for the guys, and it's not like we want them to leave, and certainly with Ryan, he's doing a great job for us here, but at the same time, I think if it's something that they want to explore, I think it's important they do that, because it confirms one thing or another for them in their head about where they're currently at and whether it's the right job for them. So, but to be fair to Ryan, he was pretty straightforward with it, and the only thing I said to him, look, I didn't want it drawn out, taken any time, and he didn't. And he's really happy where he is now and committed to us.
I know how much you value the importance of international football, being a former Australia head coach yourself. Obviously, the news this week, Thomas Tuchel's now the England head coach. You've managed in Japan. You're proud of being there. You've managed in Scotland. You love it there. I know how much you love London. One day, would you consider being a national manager of England or elsewhere non-Australia?
Look,
one day.
Yeah, one day. From my perspective, like I said, I enjoyed international football, but I felt, there was by the end of it, I was really keen to get back into the day in, day out of club football, and it's where I'm really passionate about. But in the future, who knows? I think so. You kind of, I do feel an attachment to certain nations that I've worked in, so it wouldn't be exclusive to Australia. Probably, in fact, I wouldn't coach the Australian national team again because I've kind of done that. So, but look, it is a real, it's a different role. There's greater responsibility because there's a whole sort of nation's expectations around that position, and you feel that, but hugely enjoyable as well.
Ange, you said you gave the appropriate feedback to your players after the Brighton game. What was that feedback? What kind of reaction do you want to see tomorrow?
Yeah, look, I think by appropriate, I mean, you can't just dismiss what happened in the first half and just focus on the second half. I mean, it'd be different if it was a really poor performance all round. Then you've kind of, not an easier, but analysis can be fairly straightforward. But kind of the question is why we were so good in the first half and so poor in the second half. And the second half was more around that just didn't look anything like ourselves. We were really passive with and without the ball. We lacked real conviction and courage in everything we did. It's almost like we felt like we'd done enough, and I hadn't seen that before in us. And it's a good lesson for the whole group that you need to make sure that irrespective of how a game is going, that you kind of stick to the core principles of your football. And it's a timely reminder for us that, particularly in a game of football, when you haven't put, and really in the first half we should have finished the game off, that when you don't, it's very easy for momentum to shift.
Tomorrow will be West Ham's 5th London derby in the Premier League this season, but this is the one that means the most to their fans. Are you aware of this rivalry and the significance of it?
Yeah, no, I was made very aware of it last year, and what it means, and important game. Last year we played really well, but didn't end up winning here at home, it was kind of the tail of our that part of our season a little bit. But it's going to be a challenging game. They've got some fantastic players in the team. Obviously, they've got a new manager. They're doing things a little bit differently. We saw in the last game just what a threat they can be, particularly going forward, and good challenge for us. But I think the emphasis has to be on us reproducing the form we've shown in recent times, and like I said, more importantly, sticking to the principles of our game.
You mentioned the new manager, Julian Lopetegui, was singing your praises yesterday. What do you think of him?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to look at sort of the positions he's held, and that gives you a fairly clear idea of how highly he's regarded and the impact he's made. You don't become sort of manager of Spain or Real or the jobs he's held. And I'm always interested when managers come in and sort of try and take a club in a new direction. Obviously, they're trying to play a little bit differently, and it's not easy to do. So I'm always intrigued by managers who kind of take that path. And he's a top quality coach, and I think I think he's starting to build sort of the team that he wants at West Ham, and I think it'll be exciting for the supporters. Thank you.
Ange, how are you?
I'm good, mate.
Didn't beat West Ham last season in either game. Drew at West Ham, and despite being absolutely dominant at home in the first half, lost at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But this will be a very different West Ham team. You mentioned already the new manager likes to play in a very different way. Will that suit the way you like to play?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think it is a different approach, but most of the personnel is still there from last year when you look at sort of the kind of lineups they've had the last 2 or 3 weeks. So, there's still that emphasis that they had last year. I mean, they're a big side, they're a physical side, they've got some real speed on the wings. So I don't think there's a style that suits us or doesn't suit us. I think when we play well, we can play well against most systems and styles, as we've shown. And if we don't, or if we don't stick to our principles, we can struggle against anybody. So I think more important for us is how we approach things.
Going back to the Thomas Tuchel appointment as England manager, first of all, were you surprised that a top football nation like England couldn't come up with an English coach?
No, I mean, I think, obviously they were looking for somebody to replace Gareth, who'd done an unbelievable job, and I guess like most things, they probably canvassed, who was the most appropriate for the role now. I think there's some very, very good English coaches around, but with national team jobs, it's not always straightforward. It's about timing sometimes. I certainly found that when I became Australian national team boss, it was a good time for me and a good time for them to look for an Australian, and I was doing well at the time and I could get out of where I was. It's not always the case, so things have to align, but I think they've got a fantastic manager in Thomas. He's got an outstanding record, particularly in kind of knockout football, and again, highly respected, and great group of players they've got at the moment who are just beginning to sort of emerge, on a global basis. So exciting appointment.
And having done the international football management already, is there more scrutiny on a manager at international level or at club level? I mean, certainly with England, you think it was probably be a bit higher than Australia with respect. And I mean, for example, you never asked for Australia whether you'd sing the national anthem or not. I mean, we've already asked Thomas Tuchel. I don't know if you'd sing the national anthem if you were England manager.
There's a lot of questions in there, mate. Let me get a head around all of it. Look, I get, there is a lot more scrutiny in the England national team manager's role, absolutely. More than probably any other role anywhere in the football universe, I'd say, from living here. And it's funny how, there's this clamour for an English manager, but I'm not sure you guys have treated English managers really kindly in the past. It's not like they get extra support by being English and managing their national team, just looking at the history. And again, I'm looking at it from afar. So, I think whenever an Englishman does take this role, I certainly felt as, when I was, manager of Australia, there is a greater weight on your shoulders because it is your nation and you're always going to live there. It's like sometimes with the foreigners, they can do the job, and if it's not great, they go back and live where they live and they don't have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis, whereas So there is a greater weight of responsibility when it's your own national team. I really believe that, and particularly the England national team. So, I mean, that's something that I think probably the people who make these appointments are wary of. Is it's not just about coaching; it's how you deal with all these other things that are attached to the England national team job. And sometimes the foreign coaches don't probably have to deal with it as much as an English manager would. So, there's a real challenge there. But like I said, I think they've got an outstanding manager in Thomas, and I think the key thing is irrespective. They've got a fantastic generation of players coming through. I'd be excited if I was an England football supporter.
Hi, Ange. I wanted to ask you a bit more about this England manager's position. There's been a lot of debate about the calibre of English coaches in English football. I was wondering what you thought of that. With a lot of English coaches in your backroom staff, do you think that English coaches are of the highest calibre, and what are the barriers for them to get opportunities?
Yeah, look, there are, absolutely. I mean, even in the Premier League, you look at Eddie and even guys like Steve Cooper, who've done a great job with the England underage teams, which is always a good indicator about international football. So, there are fantastic English managers there, but I've just never looked at coaches from and their nationality doesn't really interest me. It's about how they work and how passionate they are about what they do. It's a tough job, how they deal with things, and I think part of the growth comes from being open to allowing different kinds of cultures and nationalities into your game. I don't think the Premier League would be the best competition in the world if it was restricted. In terms of the access, we've got some fantastic footballers, some fantastic managers, which I think helps the game grow here. And I don't think it necessarily should stunt the growth of English players. It certainly hasn't stunted the growth of English players, because you're getting some of the best English players coming through. And I don't think it should stunt the growth of the English managers either. If anything, hopefully it raises their level, raises their ambitions, challenges them even more. I think I've always prescribed to the theory that you always pitch it to the highest common denominator and get everyone to sort of climb to that, rather than sort of bring things down just to create opportunities for someone.
Player comparison's interesting there, how we have a lot of players like that, but do you think that maybe managers should look like the players to go overseas a little bit? You did that with Japan, and Ryan obviously had the interview with in Belgium, so do you think that that's actually maybe a pathway that should be explored by more Englishmen if they're not getting the chances here?
Yeah, I certainly subscribe to that theory. I think because it allows you to grow. Sometimes, when you've just had a real sort of siloed kind of journey of the same kind of culture, same kind of football, for there to be growth, you really almost have to go out and discover it yourself. Whereas when you manage overseas, and there's been great examples. Bobby Robson did it, so Bobby did it. Terry Venables did it. Some England managers who, Roy Hodgson did it. Graham Potter's done it, and they're all world-class coaches. So there is some merit in it, and it's not easy, because I think sometimes there's a fear that if you do go overseas, that you get lost to the system here. Whereas if you stay in the system, eventually you'll get. But I always think that part of growth as a manager is to try and experience as many different things as possible, and coaching abroad certainly does that.
Hi, Ange. I just wanted to ask about Jed Spencer's new contract and the journey that he's been on since he came back to the club this summer.
Yeah, look, I think I've said a couple of days ago, and I'll consistently say, most of a player's future is in their own hands. It's not really they're as much as in control of that as anyone else. I think sometimes footballers forget that. And with Jed, it could have been easy for him to come in this year, go out on loan again and see what, but it seemed that when he came into pre-season, he was determined to make a career, here for himself here at Tottenham and try and have a crack here rather than just wait to be loaned out. And, he did everything right at training. His attitude was great. He's a good footballer. I think the way we play suits him, and, he's knuckled down to that, and he's earned himself a spot on the roster in our squad, and the rest is up to him again, because it's an easy decision for me to make when I see that. Like I said, sometimes footballers think that, their fate is in other people's hands. For the most part, it's in their own. If they're doing well and if they're doing everything right, the future tends to take care of itself. Whether that's, where you currently are, you move on. But, and Jed's certainly done that.
If I've done my research properly, Tottenham have not played a single goal kick long this season. So just wanted to ask if you could just explain why it is so important to you that players always look to pass it short.
Yeah, I don't know. We might have played one or two longer, but I won't second guess your research. Yeah, look, it's part of sort of the way we want to play our football. I think a shorter pass, there's more certainty. You're going to start off with possession. We don't want to really give away possession. I think with the kind of team we are, we want to try and sort of set things up where we have control possession of the game. And I think a shorter pass kind of guarantees that. And then from there, you move your way forward. And it's a big part of sort of our build-up play is to try and, manipulate oppositions as much as we can as we move up the park rather than just sort of, go long to a contested ball and hope we get the second ball. We're just not that kind of team. So, but within that context, I think, there's enough variety there that we still make it sort of difficult for teams to kind of stop us from achieving that.
Hi Ange, you mentioned in your injury update yesterday that some players are still waiting to come back into the building. Yeah. Christian Romero played the early hours of Wednesday morning, had the long flight back, bit of a quicker turnaround this time. Yeah. How is he?
Yeah, he's okay, he's good, yeah. No, we got everyone back yesterday. The last of them was, Christian and Pape and Biss, and they're all good. They've reported well. Look, we got the early kick-off, so that's a quick turnaround. But we trained this morning and they were all fine. Lucas Bergvall picked up a small knock, but he trained as well, so he's no problem. So in terms of, the internationals, everyone's got a clean bill of health.
With Richarlison hopefully back in the squad tomorrow, what have you done differently over the past 6 weeks or so just to make sure these injuries stop reoccurring?
Yeah, we've taken our time with him, but it hasn't been just about sort of him recuperating and sort of recovering from the injury. We've tried to use it to really kind of build his real fitness base up so that when he comes back, he's in great. To be fair to him, he's worked awfully hard. He's trimmed down. He looks really lean now, and he's worked really hard. So we've tried to use it almost as another sort of pre-season for him on an individual basis to not just get him to recover from his injury, but also, because to be fair, he probably recovered from his injury a couple of weeks ago, but we've used the last couple of weeks at just getting his fitness base up and like I said, getting him really in a good physical condition so that we don't keep going through this cycle of him coming back and breaking down. And like I said, hopefully everything's good, but to be fair to him, he's worked really hard and he's looking really good. He's had a good week of training. He's he's missed playing. He's a real kind of infectious guy as well. It's just good to have him back with the group.
We'll finish this section with George.
Hi, Ange. Just wanted to go back to QT Romero. Has he sort of hit the levels that you want this season, or is he kind of still working his way to his best? Because he had a busy summer again, didn't he, with the Copa America and a quick turnaround?
Yeah, I think QT's been, again, probably reflective of our season. He's had some really good moments for us, and then he's had a couple of disappointing moments for him, which I know he's been, he has been happy about himself. But it is tough, we've spoken about the schedules, and it's funny how the guys who didn't have international commitments, not that there were many of them, look really refreshed and really ready to go, and not just for us but for football in general, and the amount of travel and the amount of games, because he always plays. Kuti does. We've always got to sort of bear that in mind, and it's something that the players need to sort of learn to cope with the best they can. But he's still real important for us. He's an outstanding defender. He's a great leader in our group, and he's still contributing.
And just finally for me, that after the Brighton game, the kind of Spursy tag was doing the rounds, and there was a stat about Tottenham taking a 2-goal lead 10 times in the Premier League year and letting it slip. Is that something that the players just have to embrace, or is it better to block that type of stuff out?
Mate, it's irrelevant. Who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, you say it's 10 times. Well, it hasn't been 10 times with me, so give me a break. Like, let me get to 10 and then start putting tags on me. But that's, you've got to accept that, right? You've got to just say, well, that's how, people will always find easy kind of ways to, you've got a wound to stick their finger in that wound. So that's, if you're not prepared to accept that when things haven't gone well, make sure things go well. There's one way to change that. So, if we want to change the perception of ourselves, then it's not going to come because, please don't call us those names. It's going to become because we're proving that we're a team that, can be relentless in our approach and be successful.
We'll have one quick one from Gunley.
Yeah, Ange, and just a quick question. How about the Sonny? Sonny, is he available to play tomorrow?
Yeah, Sonny's good. He's worked hard these 2 weeks. Obviously, he was very disappointed to miss playing for his national team, but I think it's been good for him this 2 weeks. He's worked really hard. He's had a good solid training week, and he can't wait to get back out there. He's good to go.